Hello, everyone, and thank you for attending my presentation. Today, I'll be talking about some challenges faced by Arabic-speaking students when writing academic English. My name is Ahmed Junina, and I teach at the University of Auckland English Language Academy. Here's the outline of my presentation. I'll start with some background information about the topic, and then I'll talk about the context of this study. And after that, I'll present some findings of my research, and this will be followed by talking about some implications for practitioners. And I'm happy to take any questions you may have after that. We are talking about a context of internationalization of higher education. And this has been the norm over the past 20 years or so. And part of this change in the landscape of higher education is the number of international students. For example, in 2019, there were more than 6 million students who crossed the borders of their countries to study overseas. And about 4 million students of these were studying in OECD countries. Students from developing countries represented about 67% of these 4 million students. And the case in New Zealand is no different. The country has witnessed massification since the year 2000. And the country continues to be a destination for many international students. Let's look about some numbers. Now, in 2019, New Zealand received more than 116,000 international students. And this contributed about 4.6 billion New Zealand dollars to the economy. The 8 universities in New Zealand received about 29,000 international students. And to be honest, this is a significant number of international students for a country of 5 million people population. Obviously, the education sector in New Zealand, just like everywhere, witnessed a significant drop in international student numbers. And of course, this was due to the impact of COVID-19 and closing the borders. But it seems that universities didn't suffer much from that drop in student numbers. There were about 21,000 international students studying in the 8 universities in New Zealand. Now, while these international students bring cultural and economic benefits to the host countries, they're faced with kind of what we call deficit approach that frames their presence and their participation in higher education. And there is much debate about the English problem that accompanies international students, assuming that these students, or many of them, struggle with the demands of literacy for studying in an English-speaking country. Now, this gives rise to the definition of literacy. What is literacy? Well, it's one's ability to read and write. But it seems that this definition is traditional. Now, we are in the 21st century, and I think we are expected to shift focus to literacies in the plural sense instead of one single literacy. Take a look at these examples. Aren't students expected to master some, if not all, of these literacies? Think about digital literacies, given that we are in a COVID era. And students are mostly studying online. So we've shifted focus from one literacy to literacies. My research has been informed by the academic literacies model, which looks at writing as social practice rather than an individualized, single, separated skill that can be mastered easily. And I wanted to find answers to these 2 research questions. I wanted to know what challenges students, Arabic-speaking students in New Zealand encounter when writing academic English, and how we can help and how we can better prepare them for the demands of academic language. And I'm interested in writing because there's a lot of research that confirms that it's a challenge for many non-native English-speaking students, and for international students, of course. And it's still the basic tool for assessment at the tertiary level. But let's remember that no one seems to be a native speaker of academic language. Even native speakers find challenges in meeting the demands of academic writing. And these are some of the authors that talked about the demands, the problems and the challenges native speakers encounter with academic writing. And one of the most challenging aspects at the tertiary level seems to be what Lee and Street call course switching, which means that students find it challenging to meet the demands of one course and then move to another course to find different demands, and so on and so forth. So it's interesting to call it like course switching. Basically, my research is qualitative, and it explored the experiences of 34 Arabic-speaking students from these Arab countries. And as you can see, the majority were from Saudi Arabia. And I was interested in listening to both male students and female students. And this was the distribution of the participants based on gender. Now I'll move on to talk about the findings of my research. So basically, I have identified 4 basic themes when analyzing the interviews. One of the themes was the impact of linguistic differences between Arabic and English, and how this impacts students' ability to write in English. Here are some differences between Arabic and English, and I'll go through these features of Arabic a bit quickly, because I believe that these are easy to fix with more practice of writing. So, as many of you may know, that Arabic is written and read from right to left. There's no verb to be in the present tense in Arabic, as the example shows. And Arabic doesn't have modal verbs, and this may cause issues with hedging and when writing, in speaking or in writing. No indefinite article. That's a common problem. And this is one of the issues we encounter with Arabic-speaking students writing, that they have this double subject structure by using a noun and then a pronoun, which results in having double subjects. And this is the structure of Arabic, that nouns precede adjectives, and this is the example, the building new instead of the new building, as in English. And there's a tendency towards more coordination than subordination in Arabic, and this may result in awkward or maybe repetitive or parallel structures when transferred to English writing. One of the issues that was raised by several participants was the difference between Arabic and English in terms of vowel diacritics. Here are vowel diacritics in Arabic, and this is how they feature either above the consonant or below the consonant. There are 3 short, 3 long, and 2 diphthongs. Take this example. This word is written without any vowel diacritics. Since pronouncing this word in Arabic depends on the vowels featuring on it, the reader is expected to read or pronounce the root letters of this word. And the result is this sound. But in fact, if used with vowel diacritics, the same word, this word, could be this, or this, or even this, or it might be this, or this, or even this form, or even this form. So as you can see, the same word, the same roots may have different meanings, different ways of pronunciation, depending on how or what vowel diacritics feature on the word or under the word. So this seems to be a challenge for many Arabic-speaking students. Now, have a look at the words with the pronunciation, or like let's call the transcription of the words when vowel diacritics feature on the different words. And these are the meanings of these words in English. Totally different meanings, different words, different meanings. And I assume that a random pick or translation of these words when using context may result, of course, in distortion of the intended message in English. So the student should be aware which word is used in that particular context to get the exact meaning or equivalent in English. Another common mistake that is made by many Arabic-speaking students is adding an extra pronoun, just like this example shows, when writing relative clauses. This is my friend whom I share the project with him, and this is exactly the structure in Arabic. This is my friend whom I do share the project with, and this red letter is the him. So it seems to be literal translation, lifting from Arabic to English. And interestingly, this structure has been described as the Middle Eastern clause by these two fellows. In addition, one of the main themes that has been identified as impacting students' abilities in writing is the fact that orality is more valued than literacy in the Arab culture. And this could be evident in the speaking abilities of many Arabic-speaking students. Many of them tend to be stronger at speaking than at writing. And many teachers talk about this observation. This tendency to value orality over literacy seems to have resulted in utilizing more repetition in Arabic than in English. Arabic tends to be more, let's say, flexible in terms of repetition. And this was evident in the comments by these two students. The student said, I was taught to repeat if I wanted to emphasize an idea. And this was another participant. So it's obvious that lecturers and teachers highlight this tendency to repeat for students when giving them feedback. Another interesting finding was the difference between Arabic and English in terms of the rhetoric pattern each language follows or adopts or employs. This is what Kaplan said about these patterns. Now, Arabic falls under this Semitic category of languages, and as you can see, it follows a zigzag line of thought or argument, and it tends to be a bit parallel because of using lots of coordination than subordination. And you may have encountered this when maybe marking or reading Arabic-speaking students writing. But in fact, this let's say model by Kaplan has been criticized probably for overgeneralizing the argument. But again, it still offers some interesting differences between English and other languages, including Arabic. The second major theme in my study was that many students found the writing practice they did for the IELTS different from what they from what they are asked to write for tertiary studies and how they are asked to write for tertiary studies. Now, this difference between the two contexts seem to lie in the writing demand, how much the students are asked to write. For the IELTS writing section, students are asked to write a total of 400 words for 2 tasks. At university, students are often asked to write a couple of thousands words, maybe 2,000 words, 2,500 words for one assignment. So that's a big difference between the two contexts. And also the nature of writing seems to be different. IELTS writing tends to utilize what is called hortation function, which means the judgment about the desirability or maybe the shouldness of a topic or an entity, which maybe is different from what is expected at university. This is what a few students said about their experience with the IELTS writing. So this student talked about the difference between the two contexts. So they were emphasizing the feeling that writing for the IELTS is different. It could be also irrelevant to what they should expect at uni. And I think a striking difference between writing for IELTS and writing for university is evidence-based writing, which is a major practice at university. Students are asked to provide evidence, to cite other studies, and look at this writing prompt from an IELTS test, writing section in the IELTS test. So this is the topic. And as you can see, students or candidates are encouraged to use their own knowledge and experience. And of course, there is no expectation of any evidence. In contrast, at university, students are expected to embark on these tasks, gathering info, analyzing, referencing, and strengthening an argument, and being clear. But to be honest, there seems to be a disclaimer by IELTS that students who achieve 7 overall score may benefit from additional English tuition before embarking on tertiary studies. And this is if their fields of study are linguistically demanding, which means maybe require writing. And students who achieve 6.5 over score in the IELTS may benefit, need English tuition before starting tertiary study, and may benefit if their field of study is less demanding in terms of writing demands. So it's a bit of kind of warning for students to be clear that, well, you've received 6.5, you might be accepted on a tertiary program, but again, you need some English tuition. And in fact, 6.5 is the common acceptance score for many undergraduate, if not most, undergraduate programs, and some even postgraduate programs. To add to students' confusion when moving to tertiary study, students found it really difficult to understand or unpack the expectations of lecturers regarding academic writing. Students felt that lecturers were not clear on what they expect students to write or how they expect students to write. This is what one student said. So again, it seems like a secret the lecturers keep, and they don't tell the students about that secret of academic writing. And this student was talking about argument in writing. And to be honest, this was really interesting to me because this student's reference to argument probably shows that students are confused when it comes to the meaning of argument and how to strengthen an argument or achieve a strong argument in writing. I did some search on the internet to see how the concept of argument in writing is maybe visualized using images. And this is what I got. I believe that this is really confusing to students because simply it may not necessarily convey what is meant by an argument or achieving an argument in writing. And from my teaching experience, I found students from other language backgrounds, say Japanese or Chinese, students found it really challenging to maybe counter an argument or refute an argument or even understand from the beginning the concept of an argument in writing. So probably this is one area that should be taken into consideration. Now, as an alternative to IELTS, students were talking about the benefit they got from pathway courses they did before joining tertiary study in New Zealand. And they feel that the pathway course and the tertiary course they were doing during the study, they were similar territories. And this is what one student said about the benefit she got from attending a pathway course. So there was a feeling that it is essential, it better prepares students for the demands of the university. It's beneficial for international students. Now, when it comes to how we as practitioners could help students, there seems to be a need for utilizing students' strengths to improve their weaknesses. Many studies suggest that Arabic-speaking students are strong at speaking, and this could be utilized for the benefit of writing. I think through holding seminars or discussion sessions, or maybe brainstorming ideas and helping students establish argument or strong line of thought before writing or before engaging maybe in collaborative writing or maybe later on independent writing. So starting from what they master or know well to move to more things they find challenging. And tertiary institutions are encouraged to adopt an academic literacy approach to teaching writing. In other words, there's a need to give students the chance to express and raise their voice in their writing, rather than just looking at their writing and analyzing their writing and talking about the weaknesses of their writing. There's a need for this shift to viewing academic writing as negotiating knowledge and negotiating ideas rather than just writing what they are required to write. And again, there's a need for more clarity by discipline lecturers about what they expect students to write and how they expect students to write, because this seems to, I mean, this was mentioned by several participants, and if lecturers are clearer in terms of what they expect students to write, I believe that the challenge might be mitigated. And one practical maybe resource for teachers to use is using writing models. And this is a really useful and really good website by the University of Auckland. It's a kind of corpus of previous papers written by students, I think high achieving students. And this is how the website looks. Now, these are papers based on the field of study. Probably lecturers or teachers, writing teachers can use this resource for highlighting the features of academic writing, such as coherence, cohesion, style, argument, how to refute an argument. And yeah, I think this might be really useful. And there is a need for agreement on what is required or expected of students within the same discipline, because students we're talking about, they write for one lecturer, and that particular lecturer accepts what they did, but when they do the same for another course in the same discipline, they receive really negative feedback. So probably there should be an agreement on what is expected of students within that discipline. Peer-assisted study sessions. This is, I think, a common practice in a few universities in New Zealand. As I understand, Auckland, Otago, Wellington, and Massey, they have this what is called PASS, which is peer-assisted study sessions, where students who graduated or third year or fourth year students help students who are starting their study, or maybe in the first year of their study. So there seems to be a need for promoting these sessions and encouraging students to visit them and make use of these study sessions. And of course, because students were talking about the positive impact of attending a pathway course on their writing ability, there seems to be a need for encouraging more pathway courses and possibly subsidizing some pathway courses for students from particular language backgrounds, maybe particular nationalities. A final word. So let's help our students raise their voice in writing and negotiate their knowledge. Thank you so much.